So welcome to Lesson 4, Camera Raw Basics. I'm going to show you a couple different programs in this lesson. So just navigate to Canvas, go to Lesson 4. At the very top, you should see download the images for the lesson. Go ahead and download them. They'll go in your downloads folder. I'm on a PC, so I'm going to right click and then I'm going to extract all, and it's going to open them right next to it in a folder. And then I'm going to open this, and then I'm going to right click on these, and I'm going to open it with Adobe Bridge. Now, if you've never opened it with Adobe Bridge, you'll have to set up something. So I'm going to hit open with, and normally you'd see Adobe Bridge up here, but if you don't see it up here, just go ahead and choose another app and ensure that you've downloaded it if you haven't downloaded it already. Then just go choose an app on your PC, and then double click Adobe, go find Bridge, go in there and just open up Bridge. And I'm just going to hit always, because I'm going to always open it with Adobe Bridge. So Adobe Bridge will open up everything in that file, in that folder, and here it is. You see all the different photos. And it's a great program that allows you to bridge between your hard drive and all the Adobe products. So if you have Illustrator files or could be Premiere files, anything in there, you'll see little thumbnails of everything in the Adobe Bridge. So Adobe Bridge is good for different kinds of media and different kinds of Adobe files. So these are all DNGs, these are raw files, and this is an NEF, which is a Nikon raw file, and there's a JPEG and JPEG. So a lot of different types of files in here. So I'm just going to click on this one. I'm going to open in Camera Raw. Now, a quick note, some versions of Camera Raw, they're all going to be very similar. So if yours doesn't look exactly like mine, it'll be very similar. So what it's going to do, it's going to open up Camera Raw. It's going to look like this, and I'm going to make it the full size here. And there's lots of different things. Like this one, here's the image here. Here's thumbnails along here. There's all these different controls along the side. So I'm going to close this real quick, and then I'm going to highlight everything right here. And then I'm going to right click on this and open in Camera Raw again. And now I'm going to see all the thumbnails along the side on the bottom right here. And then here's the main photo here. So this is the film strip where all the photos are. Okay. This location up here, this is the histogram for the image. So it tells you where your colors are all falling within the history of the photo, like from your dark point all the way to your white point. These are the different palettes on the side. It's an edit palette here. Here's a light palette. Here's a color palette. All these different things, and that affects the photo that you're looking at right here. These are different tools. So right here, this is the edit palette for everything, or I should say edit window. Here's the crop window. There's the remove window, the masking, the red eye, snapshots, and different presets that you can save. I'm going to go back up to the edit one. And notice when you swap through these, the histogram always is on the top right here. And here's some tools here. This is the magnifying tool, the hand tool to move things around, the sampler, and then the grid overlay. You can lay a grid over top of it. Then these tools here will let you cycle before and after views. It's using the Q key as you go through. So if you make a change, you can cycle through and see the before and the after, and it'll just let you cycle through everything. And these tools up here, there's the convert and save, the different preferences, and the full screen option. And then the last set of tools here is this will just tell you how large your images are by pixels and megapixels and your pixels per inch and things like that. It just tells you it's a 16-bit color and things like that. It gives you all the information on it. So a couple quick notes. There's several ways to open Adobe Camera Raw. One is to open through Bridge, which we just did here. And the other way is by double-clicking on a raw file in the Finder. And this will open the Adobe Camera Raw plugin. There are actually two different Camera Raw plugins, one in Bridge and one in Photoshop. Additionally, there's a Camera Raw filter, which is opened in Photoshop under the filter menu. This is a little different because it doesn't have all the same tools that this plugin has. Adobe Camera Raw has greater functionality than Camera Raw filter because the Camera Raw filter modifies a single layer, and it doesn't include tools or features that modify the document's properties. This feature includes removing workflow options and the crop tool, so you can't crop if you're using the filter. Additionally, you cannot change the Camera Raw preferences, create snapshots, or save as different formats in the Camera Raw filter. So let me show you the difference quickly on the difference between the Camera Raw filter and the Camera Raw plugin. So this is the Camera Raw plugin. Notice all the tools here. You have a lot of tools down here. You have the fit screen over here. Everything looks good. I have this open because I opened all the thing. Let me show you the Camera Raw plugin. So here, this is a photo from our collection. If you look, it's this photo right here. So this is Photoshop. If I go plugins, the filter, the Camera Raw filter, it'll open up Camera Raw filter. Now it looks similar. So here's the difference. Here is the Camera Raw, and here's the Camera Raw filter, but it doesn't have the crop tool and some other things. So if you look here, it has fewer tools on the side, so you can't really do as much to it, but you can still do a lot of the color corrections and things like that. Because what you're doing is you're actually laying a filter on something, so you can't modify the document itself, because if you were to crop it, then it wouldn't fit the original document. So I'm just going to cancel out of this and go back. So I'm going to actually close Photoshop. So here we're back in the Camera Raw filter, or Camera Raw plugin right here. So I'm going to cancel this real quick and go back to this original right here. So here is Adobe Bridge, or you can just double click on it, or Camera Raw, and it will open in Photoshop, and then in Photoshop, then it will open in the Camera Raw. So remember what I said is Camera Raw plugin has two versions. It has one for Bridge and one for Photoshop. Now, if I hit cancel, Photoshop is open. If I right click on this and open in Camera Raw, it will not open Photoshop first, it'll open Camera Raw. So when I click on this, there's Camera Raw. See the difference? I'm going to cancel this. If I double click on it, it's going to open Photoshop first, and then it's going to open the Camera Raw plugin. So that's the main difference. So because we're going to work in the Camera Raw plugin right now, I'm not going to open up Photoshop. We're going to just open up by right-clicking and opening up with Camera Raw. Now, these are all, the DNG is a raw file. NEF is a raw file because I actually shot this picture. JPEGs are just they're photos. So Camera Raw will edit other files besides Camera Raw. To open those, just simply right-click and open in Camera Raw as well. So I'm going to highlight all these, and I'm going to open in Camera Raw. So one of the things is this is a JPEG. So JPEG has slightly different results when you do things. So you can do a lot of the same stuff, but the raw files allow you to manipulate them a lot more than in a JPEG itself. So saving files, I'll just show you real quick how to save a file. So if you click on this arrow up here, you can then, it opens up a whole dialog box, save in the same location. You can save it in a different location, save it wherever you want. It also will ask you, do you want to use the document name, and do you want to append like a serial number or a 2-digit serial number or something like that, so that it differentiates from the original. So if you're opening multiple photos, you could have it sequentially number. Right now, it's asking what kind of extension. You can select JPEG. If you change the file extension here, the format down here will change depending on what you want. There's lots of different types of files. In this case, it'll also ask you the quality. I would either do high or max with JPEG, because the more you save your file as a JPEG, the more the quality goes down, because a JPEG is a compressed image. And if you compress and compress and compress and compress, you start getting JPEG artifacting, where you don't have a smooth transition from one color to another. So you can also size things differently. Like, let's say you don't want this huge file, because a lot of these files, if you look here, is a 1944 by 2592, which is 5 megapixels. You could set that to resize to a different thing. You could set it to 1000 by 1000, whatever you want. You can just change the actual size of the photo itself. And then you can output sharpening if you want. There's lots of different options. So let's select this photo right here. So this is a photo from a number of years ago that I shot. It was shot in the ATC building, and the color balance, I made sure that it wasn't exactly correct so we could fix it. So white balance is usually the very first thing I correct, because once you fix your white balance, then you can adjust your exposure. So normally you should adjust your camera raw workflow, because getting the white balance right will eliminate 99% of your color problems right off the bat. So white balance is directly tied to exposure, because the color of light has different densities and shades. If you use the wrong white balance, your exposure will be incorrect. So in the edit panel, you can select color, and this is you'll notice that it should be set to as shot, but then you could go through and change those. So there are 3 ways to change the color balance. The first is simply apply one of the built-in color. And here's the different ones. Like, you could set it to auto. That looks fairly good. You can go through and try different ones and see if something looks better. And that's really green. And that's actually pretty good right there, except for there's a touch of red, but we could also just go as auto if you like. So, and then there's custom. So custom lets you actually adjust the temperature to get that color correct. So if you add it there, you can just see what you like and get it fairly close. I'm just going to use auto for now. And actually, it looks like it was pretty much exactly where I had it when I was doing the custom. So the first method was just selecting the white balance. The second method was the temperature and tint values. And the third method is using the white balance tool. So the white balance tool is this tool right here. And let me set it to something off, and you select this, and what you're going to do is you're looking for something white in the photo. So generally books are white, the paper is white, so you select that, and you can set that as your white, and everything falls in place. So that looks pretty good. Here's a white back here as well. It's a little bit on the blue side, but it looks fairly good. So either this, or you could go with auto. Auto probably looks a little bit better. In the past, when we're shooting a lot with our cameras in the very early stages of the digital world, auto wasn't very good, but they've gotten so much better over the years of developing the algorithm to make auto look good. So that's the third method, is actually setting your white balance. So to quickly change the views between what was there and was there, you can toggle here. So here's before and after. You can also select these, so you can see this is before and this is after if you want to see it. You can toggle to see which one you like best. And there's before. So back to normal. So the next thing is we're going to let Camera Raw autocorrect photos. So if you're not comfortable with manually adjusting the camera image, you can use the auto setting. So we're going to select this photo right here. And here are all the different settings right here for light. So right here, there's an auto, black and white, and HDR. And these are like presets. So auto would be automatically adjust the tone. Black and white obviously makes it black and white. And HDR would give that HDR look. Try to adjust it. So we'll go back, turn off this. So HDR actually blows this out. In this case, I don't think it looks very good at all. I'm going to go back to here, and I'll probably select auto because it gives a little bit of density to the image. So you can see the actual histogram up here shift just a hair. Give a little bit more to the end because the dark side, because the dark, it's really quite light on this one, and it doesn't look bad, but this just gives it a little bit more density, a little more punch. So when you hit the auto correct button, it applies auto shadows, auto highlights, and auto everything, as seen that you can see. But what if you don't want it to do everything? Adobe puts some buried in auto controls. So looking at this image of a white dress, you can, if it needs to set a white point, hold down the shift key and double click on the white slider. So hold down the shift key and double click on this. It'll set the auto whites. The same with the blacks. So double click and it'll set the blacks. So let me auto this and go back to the normal. So when you hold down the shift key, you'll see the white goes auto white. Just double click on it. You can do auto blacks, adds auto black. You see that there's the shifters, auto shadows. You can do it to every one if you want. If you don't feel like doing every one of them, or if you don't like a certain thing. You can set this back to 0 if you like it. So you can select each one of these sliders and do auto corrections on each one of them. So notice when I hold down the shift key, it'll also do it for auto vibrance and auto saturation. So an overview of the editing panel inside here, the very top part here used to be called basic, now it's called light. So the basic part also had the color in here. So the color would be just the color part, and the light would just be the exposure values. And then the effects down here, the effects are the last set of finishing tools. They're called more like finishing effects, and these actually add tonal contrast and make your colors look less or more vibrant. So these part add some vibrance. The texture can add, if you see it, it adds contrast to the middle tones, and clarity adds contrast as well. It just does, one does a larger effect and one does a narrower effect. So the texture slider is a brand new slider in Camera Raw. It's brand new as of a couple, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. It helps smooth and enhance textures and photos without destroying the finer details or adding noise. The clarity slider increases the mid-tone contrast in a way that gives your photos more punch and more impact. That's right here. The dehaze slider helps eliminate fog and haze from photos by adding contrast to the image. And that's the dehaze thing. So just be careful using dehaze because you can make a nice foggy picture very much not foggy. So vignetting will add a dark or light area to the edges of the photo. So use this sparingly. And then grain can add grain to the photo itself. See how grainy it gets? So setting your white point and black point. So one way to get the most out of your image editing is to expand the tonal range of your photograph by setting your white and black points. We do this by using the whites and the blacks slider. We increase the whites as far as we can without clipping the highlights and increase the blacks as far as we can without clipping the deepest shadows, which expands the tonal range of the photograph, meaning that the whole histogram is used. There's not an area that's not used. So let's open this photo right here. And you'll notice that there's a big, large gap here that there's not much data here. So this image is pretty flat or low contrast. So we'll start by dragging the whites slider higher right here. And you'll see how the histogram changes. So if you press the O key, you'll see right here that this changes. See how it's highlighted right there? And if we do the O, you'll start seeing where it starts clipping. See the red as it creeps in? That means it's absolute white. So what you want to do is you want to get it so that it's not quite absolute white. You'll see there's a little clipping here and a little clipping there. You'll want to do this next with the blacks slider. You can see right here, there's a little bit of warning. So when I click on it, and that is the U key. So the highlights is the O key, see the O, and this is the U. So as you slide it, you can see the absolute black. So anything that's blue is absolute black. So you want to get kind of close to it, but not quite too much. So we'll probably eliminate almost all of it by maybe -9-ish. But every photo might just be slightly different depending on your calibration. So to get an on-screen preview of any clippings, press and hold the Alt key on Windows or the Option key on a Mac. When you do that, then you do the slider. You can actually, if you're holding it down, you can then work on the slider. And it'll give you a real good idea what is going to be turning, what you're actually clipping. Same with the black area. So you can see. So you could use the U here and look at the blue, or you can use the Alt key on a PC, Option key on the Mac, and then move the slider and you'll see it as well. So now that you know how to do it the manual way, so I'm going to just revert this back. So I'm going to hit the Alt key or Option key on the Mac, and I'm going to hold reset. And this will reset it back. And this will come up and it'll say reset all changes, say yes. So I reset it back to what I had it. So now that you know how to do it manually, you can do it the automatic way, and that's by simply holding the Shift key down, double click on the blacks, double click on the whites, it automatically sets it. Now remember how I set it? It was pretty close to the same settings there. And again, the Shift, I'm just doing the auto whites and auto blacks. And a lot of times when I open up a photo, that's the first thing I do is I set a black and I set a white point because I want the photo to fall in a certain range. And then I go in and adjust the exposure and the middle tones and things like that. Bring it up a little bit. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to open the Eiffel Tower. Here it is right here. And the sky was really overexposed, so it's very bright. So the first thing we're going to do is hold down the Shift key and double click on the whites and set that. And then we're going to hold down the shift key and double click on the blacks. So if you look at this, once we've set the whites and blacks, you can hit the 0 or the O, and you'll notice that there's a little bit of clipping here. You could just adjust the white a little bit if you wanted, one way or another. You can't really do much with that, and then you hit the U key and see if you have any adjustments in the U key. It looks pretty good, so you can go back. I'm just going to set them back to normal, and it looks fairly good that way. So I'm going to turn off the clipping by pressing U and O. And I'm going to slide the exposure knob to the left to make the image darker. I think that looks a little bit better. Maybe 0.75 right there around there. Again, it's really your personal preference. If you feel the sky could be more dramatic, you can try adjusting the highlight slider by making it darker. I move it to the left just a little bit. And then the same with the shadows. You can deal with the shadows. Now look at it, it's starting to clip down below underneath the arch, so I'm just going to be careful of that. So I feel like that looks a lot better. Maybe it's a touch on the dark side. Maybe just adjust the exposure. Again, it's personal preference. And we're going to look at that. That looks pretty nice. And then we're going to click on the convert and save. And we're going to go in here and we're going to add the underscore done. So it appends the back of the file. We're going to make sure it says set the maximum. We're going to use it as JPEG. And we're going to simply hit save. It'll save it right in the lesson 4 folder. If for some reason it doesn't say done, just go ahead and add it to there. And then go ahead and save. So the next one I'm going to do is this one. And that is 5adjustbrightness2.dng. Now this is a raw file, so I'll have a little bit more flexibility than I did on the JPEG of the Eiffel Tower. This image is obviously too dark or underexposed. To make this image brighter, you want to set your whites and blacks. And there, wow, it's dark. And you can see the U, there's a lot of clipping there. And you can see a lot of your images on the dark side of it. And I'm going to move the exposure and just make it a little bit brighter. I'll double click on the blacks again. And that looks a lot better to me. I'm going to hit the O key because I want to see where the whites are falling, and I'm just going to not quite take the rest of the clipping out of here. I don't want it to be too red and too clipped. So that looks a lot better. So the final setting for that exposure value was 0.25. Whites were plus 36 and blacks -7. Again, this is their personal preference, so it doesn't have to be exact. The Canvas instructions might be slightly different. It depends on how the screen looks and what you feel like it should be. So once you're done, we're just going to move on to the next one. So adding contrast. We'll open up this alley photo. And actually, I'm going to pause right here and I'm going to hit done because I'm going to open the alley photo directly. So it's a little bit bigger. I'm going to right click and open in Camera Raw. And here it is right here. And then I'm going to turn and hide the film strip here because I want to see this photo a little bit bigger. So this is 6 contrast .jpg or JPEG. And here's an image of a back alley. Although it's quite colorful, it's also flat and low contrast. So press O if it's not already pressed, and you can see that it is pressed. And I'm going to press U, and you can tell if they're pressed because the highlights here and here will the actual boxes will be like outlined. See how they're not outlined here and now they are. Yep. So we're going to set our white points and set our black points holding Shift key down. It already started to look a little bit better, but it's still a little bit on the gray side. And you'll notice that the clipping mainly went away now. So I'm going to drag the contrast slider right here to plus, probably a plus, I don't know, plus 80. That looks pretty good. And you see there's clipping again here, but it's minor. It's barely affect the image. Notice how the color is starting to get more vibrant. This is an important adjustment, especially when you shoot in RAW mode because RAW tends to be on a little bit on the flat side. So because a lot of RAW images are low contrast and look a little bit muted, I usually tend to add a little bit of vibrance. Plus 10%. You can see how it changes. See how it really affects that. And this photo is a perfect candidate for clarity because clarity adds contrast to the middle tones. So watch what happens when you add contrast. Add like plus 30. So here to here. See how it really starts showing and getting more detail. Makes the photo pop even more. So to show you the difference, here's before, here's after. Before, after. A lot better. So on this one, we're going to save this one as well. And 6 contrast is a good name. You could actually, if you wanted, put done on it so you know it's done. So then 6 contrast done, that's a little bit better. And then you go ahead and hit save. And I'm going to hit done here. So the next one is pretty interesting. So we're dealing with highlight problems. So we're going to right click on this one and open in Camera Raw. And this has a ton of clipping. So this is 7_highlights. It's a perfect example of blown out highlights. This file is a JPEG, so we may struggle with correcting this just a little bit. It was a studio shot, overexposed, and to complicate matters, the subject's wearing a white hat and a white sweater on a white background. So again, you can see that clipping because the O is pressed and the U is pressed as well for the dark areas. So we're going to set our highlight, our whites by double clicking here, and you can see it already changed a little bit. And I'm also going to set my blacks just to be safe. So let's undo the clipping warning, and you can see you definitely have separation between her and the background a little bit there. But if you want to adjust it a little bit more, you can go to highlights and pull back just maybe to -15. And you'll see the clipping is gone. Right about the 4, it goes away. And that eliminates that paper white. So we'll go ahead and save this again. And we're going to use that same underscore done up here. Save it right back in the same area and hit save. And once that's done, we'll hit done. So the next one is the exact opposite. So we'll right click on this, open it in Camera Raw, and here you have a dark image. So this is 8_shadows.dng, and this is a raw file. You'll notice in this image the subject is backlit. So while our eyes do a good job of adjusting to a scene, as soon as we press the shutter and take the shot, we realize that cameras don't adjust like our eyes do. So as our eyes move around, they adjust. The camera has to take in the whole scene. So once again, double click, shift on white and blacks. And you don't get a lot of change on this one. So next we're going to drag the shadows slider up just a hair, and wow, you can actually see her. I'll go to about +60. You go any more, she starts to look a little bit on the flat side. So sometimes it works well to slide the slider all the way to the maximum and then slowly back down until it looks good to you. Notice the highlights are very bright, so we're going to take the highlight slider and slide it to the negative. And you'll see that she is less flat now in the highlight area. So before, after. If you want to see the before and after there you go. So because I'm a perfectionist, I'd like a touch of contrast to darken the shadows in her face. So I'm going to just add a little bit of contrast to make her not flat. So again, before, after. And if you want to see the before and after there, we'll just cycle through all of them real quick. There. And this one we're just going to hit done. We're all good with that. Now I want a quick note of something to show you. If you look here, BNGs don't have to be saved because the settings are in it. So you'll see this little icon here, that means there's settings. So if I were to double click or open this in RAW, it's still saved everything. I could go back and convert it all back if I wanted by hitting Alt on a PC or Option on a Mac and reset it. But it doesn't matter at this point. So now putting all the toning tools together. So we're going to open up 9, bring it all together, right click on it, open up Camera Raw. And here you have a picture of the SC4 Tower and McMorran Boulevard here. The first thing we want to do is set the white and black points by pressing and holding Shift. The next thing we want to do is grab the exposure knob and darken the middle tones of the photo. Let's make it about, I don't know, -65 or 0.65. And there is some clipping here, but it doesn't bother me because it's in the trees and it's just the dark area, so it's okay. So looking at the overall image, you'll notice the highlights in the sky, especially where the clouds near the horizons are kind of very bright over here. So there's just not a lot of contrast between the sky and the clouds, and it just, I don't know. I like a little bit of dramatic clouds. So I'm going to grab the highlight slider and slide it over. Initially I said negative 93, but that looks okay. Maybe a little bit overkill, but it's good for you guys to see it. And the highlight slider affects the density in the highlights without adjusting the white point, so there's no clipping involved. So just be very careful when adjusting the highlight slider, because if you adjust it too much, your photo could come out looking like a cartoon, especially when you adjust the shadow slider. This will give a photo like a high dynamic range look, like HDR look. So after you've adjusted the highlight slider, you'll notice that the photo's starting to look a little bit on the flat side again. It just needs some kind of punch. You can reset the white point by holding shift and double clicking on the white point, and you'll see that it just brought it up, and it's not quite as flat as it was. So because I shot this in RAW, one of the last things you'll want to do is add noise reduction. When you shoot JPEG, your camera automatically adds noise reduction, saturation to the image. But when you shoot camera RAW, it leaves the image alone. Even if you shoot at low ISO, you tend to get a little bit of grain. We're going to go down to the details area. And hit the arrow next to detail and bring it up. And there are actually a bunch of sliders, but they're hidden. So click on these and you can see there, and there's some manual noise reduction as well there. So that's all under the details tab here. So I'm going to open all of these. So I'm going to add a little bit of manual noise reduction and luminance. I'm going to probably add it to, I don't know, about 20. '21, somewhere around there. So if you shoot a high ISO or in poor lighting, you may need to make this number a little bit higher. And I just want to make sure they're sharpening. Add a little bit of sharpening. 40 is pretty good right there. And then I'm going to scroll all the way back up here, and I'm going to just add a touch of saturation. And that's vibrance, I'm going to add 10, and saturation, I'm going to add 10. So the original image looked like this, and the new one looked like that. So there's a little bit of a good difference. See, you can definitely tell in the clouds. So then I'm going to simply click on the Save button, make sure it says Done up here, and go ahead and save it. So we're submitting photos for this lesson. There should be 4. It should be 5 underscore adjust brightness 1 underscore done dot JPEG, 6 underscore contrast underscore done dot JPEG, 7 underscore highlights underscore done dot JPEG, and 9 underscore bring it all together underscore done dot JPEG. Hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll talk to you next week.